Before we begin, please be advised that this story delves into themes that some listeners may find intense or unsettling. Listener discretion is advised. The phone call came exactly when Michael Thompson had stopped expecting it, which he knew was precisely when the truly terrible things always happened. Not in the immediate aftermath of a crisis, when adrenaline was high and defenses were up, but in the quiet lull, when you'd convinced yourself the worst had passed. It was a Tuesday late afternoon, the flat, monotone voice of Detective Miller cutting through the hum of Michael's perfectly ordinary life. "Your sister, Jessica Thompson. We're confirming she's been reported missing. Last seen about a week ago." Michael's blood ran cold. "Jessica? Missing?" The words felt like stones thrown into a still pond, sending ripples of dread across his carefully constructed piece. He hadn't spoken to her in months, not since their last explosive argument about her conspiracy theories and his journalistic cynicism. He'd walked away, convinced she was spiraling, and now this. Missing? Michael's voice was rougher than he intended. "What do you mean missing? She's probably just off the grid, working on some obscure research project." "You know Jessica?" Detective Miller's sigh was audible, heavy with professional indifference. "Mr. Thompson, we've checked her apartment. No signs of forced entry, no struggle. Her car is still in the garage. Her landlord says she hasn't been seen. And her colleagues at the bioinformatics lab haven't heard from her. We're treating it as a voluntary disappearance for now." Voluntary disappearance? The phrase hit Michael like a slap. Jessica might be eccentric, brilliant, stubborn to a fault, but she wasn't careless. She always left a trail, a cryptic breadcrumb for him to follow if she truly vanished. Besides, the idea of her just leaving without a word, without a single infuriatingly clever note, was unthinkable. It wasn't her style. It was too normal. Michael, a former investigative journalist who traded the adrenaline of breaking stories for the quiet predictability of writing marketing copy, felt a familiar, unsettling itch beneath his skin. The kind of itch that signaled a story, a real one, was trying to claw its way out of the shadows. He tried to suppress that instinct, to bury it under layers of routine and a comfortable salary, but it was still there, a dormant predator stirring. "I'm going to her apartment," Michael stated, not asking. "Mr. Thompson, we've already processed the scene. There's nothing to indicate foul play," Miller replied, his voice laced with the weary patience of someone dealing with a grief-stricken relative. "I know my sister, Detective," Michael retorted, his voice hardening. "And Jessica Thompson doesn't just voluntarily disappear. Not like this." He hung up, the receiver clattering into its cradle, a stark punctuation mark on the end of his quiet life. The drive to Jessica's apartment felt like a journey back in time, to a period when his world was less defined, more dangerous, more alive. He remembered Jessica as a child, her mind already a whirlwind of questions and theories, always seeing patterns where others saw chaos. She'd been a prodigy, a savant with numbers and biological systems, her intellect both a blessing and a curse. It had led her to groundbreaking research, but also to a profound distrust of established systems, a belief that the world operated on unseen strings pulled by unseen hands. He'd always dismissed it as paranoia. Now, a cold dread whispered that perhaps he'd been wrong. Jessica lived in a nondescript building on the outskirts of the city, a place chosen for its anonymity rather than its charm. The apartment was exactly as he remembered it. Meticulously organized chaos. Bookshelves overflowed with texts on genetics, epidemiology, cryptography, and ancient history. Whiteboards were covered in equations and diagrams that looked like alien script. Yet, there was an unsettling stillness to it now, a void where Jessica's vibrant, restless energy should have been. He walked through the rooms, a ghost in her space. The police had been thorough, leaving behind faint dusting powder and white evidence markers. Nothing seemed out of place, yet everything felt wrong. Her coffee mug was in the sink, half empty. A bookmark protruded from a novel on her nightstand. These were small details, but they screamed of an abrupt departure, not a planned one. Jessica never left unfinished business. He found himself drawn to her study, the heart of her intellectual world. Her high-end workstation was dark, the monitors blank. Her primary work laptop, a custom-built beast of a machine, was gone. That was significant. Jessica guarded her research like a dragon its hoard. If she'd left voluntarily, she would have taken it. If someone had taken her, they would have taken it. His eyes scanned the room, searching for anything the police might have missed, anything that screamed Jessica. He remembered her old habit, a trick from their childhood adventures, hidden messages in plain sight. He ran his hand along the spine of a worn copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a book they'd both loved. Nothing. He checked behind a loose floorboard near her desk, a spot they'd used for hiding comic books. Empty. Then his gaze fell on a small, unassuming terrarium on a shelf in the corner. Inside, a miniature ecosystem thrived, a testament to Jessica's fascination with interconnected biological systems. Beneath a cluster of vibrant moss, barely visible unless you knew precisely what you were looking for, was a small, smooth river stone. He picked it up. It felt slightly loose. With a twist, the bottom of the stone came away, revealing a hollowed-out compartment. Inside, nestled snugly, was an old, battered USB flash drive. It was an antique by today's standards, the kind he hadn't seen in years. It felt heavy in his hand, not from its physical weight, but from the sudden, crushing weight of certainty. This was it. This was Jessica's breadcrumb. He rushed home, his heart hammering against his ribs. He barely registered the drive back, his mind already racing, dissecting possibilities. He ignored calls from his editor, from friends. Nothing mattered but this small plastic device. Back in his apartment, he fired up his own desktop, a powerful machine he'd built for his journalism days. He inserted the flash drive. A single folder appeared on the screen, labeled only with a string of seemingly random numbers and letters. Inside, another folder similarly named, and another. Jessica's encryption was legendary. She'd built entire systems for fun, just to see if anyone could crack them. Hours melted away. Michael, fueled by stale coffee and a growing sense of urgency, hammered away at the keyboard. He tried old passwords, shared memories, obscure scientific terms he knew she'd appreciate. He exhausted every trick he'd learned in his investigative days, every piece of knowledge about Jessica's brilliant, convoluted mind. Frustration mounted, a cold, hard knot in his stomach. Was this a dead end? Had he misread her? Then, in the dead of night, as the city slept outside his window, a single, almost forgotten memory surfaced. A childhood code based on the periodic table of elements, used for passing secret notes in class. He typed in the sequence, a combination of atomic numbers and symbols related to a specific, shared memory. The folders opened. A cascade of files flooded the screen. Encrypted documents, fragmented research notes, schematics of complex biological structures, and a series of coded messages that looked like a language unto themselves. His eyes darted across the screen, trying to make sense of the deluge. Project Chimera, he saw mentioned repeatedly. The protocol. Consortium. The terms were vague, ominous, hinting at something vast and profoundly unsettling. But then, nestled among the dense data, he saw it. A single audio file simply titled Urgent. His breath hitched. He clicked play. The audio was muffled, distorted, filled with static, but he recognized her voice instantly. It was Jessica whispering, her usual confident tone replaced by a raw, bone-chilling terror. They know. They're watching. Project Chimera, it's not what they say. It's a lie. The protocol, it's a lie. They're controlling it. Everyone. Michael, if you hear this, don't trust anyone. Don't trust the news. Don't trust the government. It's bigger than you think. The shadow, it's real. They're everywhere. Her voice broke, a sharp gasp for air. Then a sudden heavy thud that vibrated through his speakers, followed by absolute terrifying silence. Michael sat frozen, the sound of the thud echoing in the sudden void of his apartment. The screen glowed, displaying Jessica's last, desperate message. His sister hadn't just disappeared. She had stumbled upon a truth so profound, so dangerous, that it had consumed her. And now, by listening, by cracking her code, he had inherited it. The shadow government. It wasn't just one of Jessica's wild theories anymore. It was real, and it had taken his sister. He was no longer just looking for Jessica. He was looking for answers, and he had a chilling premonition that those answers would only lead him deeper into a darkness he could barely comprehend. Michael didn't sleep that night. The premonition wasn't just chilling. It was a cold, hard certainty that settled deep in his bones. He saw the world differently now, stripped of its comforting veneer of order. Every shadow seemed deeper, every silence more profound with unspoken threats. His apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage, or worse, a stage where he was the unwitting lead in a play he didn't understand. He began by meticulously re-examining everything, Not with the frantic desperation of a worried brother, but with the calculated precision of someone hunting a ghost. He went back to Jessica's apartment, the one the police had already swept and declared devoid of further clues. He ignored the yellow tape that still stretched across her door, a flimsy barrier against the truth. The landlord, a perpetually grumpy man named Frank Miller, grumbled about legalities, but Michael's steely gaze and the implied threat of a lawsuit regarding Jessica's belongings quickly silenced him. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of disinfectant and absence. The police had been thorough, perhaps too thorough. Everything was in its place, yet nothing felt right. It was too clean, too orderly for Jessica, who, despite her brilliance, had always embraced a certain creative chaos. Her desk, usually cluttered with scientific papers, half-eaten snacks, and obscure gadgets, was bare. Her laptop was gone, taken by the police for forensic analysis, they'd said. Her phone, too. All digital breadcrumbs erased or confiscated. He spent hours sifting through her physical possessions. Books stacked neatly on shelves, clothes folded perfectly in drawers. He felt like an archaeologist excavating a forgotten civilization, searching for a single shard that could unlock a lost history. He ran his hands over the spines of her books, mostly astrophysics texts and obscure historical tomes, but also a surprising number of spy thrillers, a genre she'd always dismissed as unrealistic fantasy. Now they felt like breadcrumbs. He remembered a habit Jessica had, a small quirk he'd always found amusing. Whenever she was working on something particularly sensitive or secret, she'd leave a small, innocuous object out of place. It was her way of silently communicating, a subtle signal that something was afoot. He scanned the room, his eyes darting from object to object, searching for that one misplaced item. A book upside down? A picture frame slightly askew? Nothing. The apartment was perfectly arranged, a testament to the police's meticulousness, or perhaps someone else's. Then he noticed it. Not something out of place, but something missing. Jessica had a small, hand-carved wooden elephant, a gift from their grandmother, that always sat on her bedside table. It was a sentimental piece, something she never moved. It wasn't there. His heart hammered against his ribs. He checked under the bed, behind the nightstand. Nothing. He pulled the nightstand away from the wall. Behind it, barely visible in the dust, was a faint scratch mark, almost imperceptible, as if something had been dragged across the floor. He knelt, his fingers tracing the mark. It wasn't just a scratch, it was a shallow groove curving slightly. It led to the wall. He pushed harder against the nightstand, trying to recreate the movement. It seemed to suggest something had been pulled from behind it, then pushed back. But what? The wall was solid. He tapped it. Solid. Frustration gnawed at him. He was missing something. He closed his eyes, picturing Jessica trying to think like her. Asterisk, what would she do? Where would she hide something important if she knew someone was coming? Asterisk. He opened his eyes and looked at the bedroom again, this time focusing on the structure of the room itself. The walls, the floorboards, the ceiling. He noticed a small, almost invisible seam in the baseboard directly behind where the wooden elephant would have sat. It wasn't a natural seam. It was too straight, too precise. His fingers fumbled for a moment, then found a tiny, almost microscopic indentation. He pressed it. Nothing. He pressed harder, wiggling his finger. A faint click echoed in the silent room. A section of the baseboard, no more than 6 inches long, popped outwards, revealing a shallow cavity behind it. Inside, nestled against the dusty plaster, was not the wooden elephant, but a small worn leather-bound journal and a single metallic USB drive. His breath hitched. This was it. This was the breadcrumb he'd been searching for. He carefully extracted the journal and the drive. The journal felt old, its pages yellowed. He opened it, his fingers trembling. It wasn't a diary. It was filled with Jessica's meticulous handwriting, but it wasn't scientific notes. It was a jumble of dates, names, seemingly random numbers, and cryptic symbols he didn't recognize. Some entries were underlined repeatedly, others had question marks scribbled next to them. It looked like a puzzle, a complex cipher. He flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning for anything he could immediately understand. One name leaped out at him. Project Chimera. Underneath it, a series of coordinates that looked vaguely familiar, perhaps somewhere in the southwestern United States. And next to that, a single word, Eclipse. He pocketed the journal and the USB drive, his mind racing. Project Chimera? Eclipse? What did any of this mean? And why was Jessica involved in something so secretive she had to hide it behind a false baseboard? He left Jessica's apartment, the weight of the journal and the drive in his pocket feeling heavier than lead. The sun was setting, casting long, distorted shadows across the street. He felt exposed, vulnerable. Every car that passed seemed to slow down. Every pedestrian seemed to glance his way for a beat too long. He shook off the paranoia, telling himself it was just the stress, the adrenaline. Back in his own apartment, he locked the door, drew the blinds, and turned on every light. He didn't want any shadows today. He plugged the USB drive into his laptop. A single folder appeared. Research face. He clicked it open. Inside were hundreds of files. Most were standard scientific papers, familiar to him from countless conversations with Jessica. But then one file stood out. It was labeled anomaly_001.mp4. He double-clicked. The video started. It was grainy, shot from a distance, seemingly from a drone or a high-altitude camera. The footage showed a desolate, rocky landscape, eerily similar to the coordinates he'd seen in the journal. In the center of the frame there was a structure. It wasn't a building in the conventional sense. It was massive, metallic, and seemed to hum with an unnatural energy. Its design was unlike anything he had ever seen, alien yet strangely elegant. As the camera zoomed in, he saw figures moving around the structure. They were dressed in dark, indistinguishable uniforms. They were carrying equipment, moving with a purpose that suggested a highly organized operation. One figure, however, was different. This person was not in uniform. They were wearing a light-colored lab coat, their back to the camera. Even from that distance, Michael recognized the posture, the way her hair caught the light. It was Jessica. His breath caught in his throat. Jessica was there, at this impossible structure, surrounded by these unknown figures. She was alive. Or at least she had been when this footage was taken. Then the footage flickered. A sudden burst of static, then the image cleared. The structure was still there, but now a blinding flash of light erupted from its core, followed by a ripple of energy that distorted the air around it. The figures in uniform scattered, some falling to the ground. Jessica, too, stumbled, clutching her head. The video cut out abruptly. The screen went black. Michael stared at the blank screen, his mind reeling. What had he just witnessed? It looked like something out of a science fiction movie, not something happening in the real world, involving his sister. Project Chimera. Eclipse. The pieces were starting to connect, forming a picture far more terrifying than he could have imagined. He tried to replay the video, but his laptop screen suddenly went dark. Not just the video, the entire laptop. He pressed the power button. Nothing. The machine was completely dead. He tried unplugging and replugging the USB drive. Still nothing. A cold dread washed over him. It wasn't a malfunction. It was too coincidental. The drive, the laptop, they had been deliberately fried. Someone had been watching him. Someone knew he had found Jessica's hidden clues. He looked around his apartment, the bright lights now feeling less like a shield and more like an advertisement. He felt a sudden intense chill, as if an unseen presence had just entered the room. He walked to the window, pulling back a corner of the blind. The street below was empty, save for a lone car parked a block away. Its engine off, its windows tinted black. It hadn't been there when he arrived. He dropped the blind, his heart pounding. The premonition wasn't just about darkness. It was about being drawn into it. He was no longer just looking for answers, he was now a target. The shadowy figures in the video, the ones who had taken Jessica, were now aware of him. They were watching, and they had just sent their first chilling message. He had the journal, though. They hadn't gotten that. He pulled it out, opening it to the page with Project Chimera and Eclipse. He needed to understand these symbols, these coordinates. He needed to find someone who could help him decrypt Jessica's cryptic notes. But who could he trust, when it seemed the very air around him was thick with unseen eyes? He knew with a certainty that froze his blood that the game had changed. He wasn't just searching for his sister in a missing persons case. He was now an unwitting player in a deadly game. A game with stakes far beyond his comprehension. A game orchestrated by forces that operated in the shadows. Forces that had just made it clear they would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. And he, Michael, was now the only one standing in their way. He was alone, and he was terrified, but he was also resolute. He would find Jessica, and he would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. No matter the cost. The words echoed in Michael's mind, a grim mantra against the chilling reality that had just shattered his world. Sarah, his only anchor, gone. The apartment, once a sanctuary, now a tomb. A testament to the ruthless efficiency of an enemy he couldn't even name. Fear, cold and sharp, clawed at his throat, threatening to paralyze him. But beneath it, a desperate resolve ignited, fueled by grief and a burning need for answers. They had taken Sarah. They had taken Jessica. They would not take the truth. He moved on instinct, his hands trembling but steady. He couldn't stay. This place was compromised, every shadow a potential hiding spot for unseen eyes. He grabbed a small backpack, stuffing it with essentials. A wad of cash he'd kept hidden for emergencies, a spare change of clothes, his old untraceable burner phone he hadn't used in years, and a worn leather-bound journal Jessica had given him once. It was a sentimental choice, but even in his haste, he clung to anything that reminded him of her. He wiped down surfaces, not out of any real hope of erasing his presence, but as a desperate, futile gesture of defiance. The silence of the apartment was deafening, punctuated only by his own ragged breathing. He glanced at Sarah's slumped form one last time, a silent promise forming in his heart. Then, with a heavy step, he slipped out, locking the door behind him, knowing he would never return. The city outside was a blur of indifferent faces in towering concrete. Every car that slowed, every stranger who met his gaze, felt like a potential threat. He walked, not towards any specific destination, but simply away, letting the urban labyrinth swallow him. His mind raced, replaying Jessica's frantic call, her whispered warnings about Project Chimera, and the council. He had dismissed it as paranoia then, the ramblings of someone under immense stress. Now it was terrifyingly real. His first priority was to go dark. He ditched his regular phone in a public trash can, its battery already dead, a symbolic severing of his digital tether. He walked for hours, weaving through crowded markets, ducking into coffee shops, and blending into the evening rush hour, constantly checking over his shoulder. The paranoia was a physical weight pressing down on him. He felt like a ghost, an invisible man in a world suddenly hostile. Where would Jessica have gone? What would she have done if she knew she was in danger? She was meticulous, always had a backup plan. He tried to think like her, to anticipate her next move. Her office would have been swept clean, her apartment a trap. But Jessica had a habit of leaving breadcrumbs, small, almost imperceptible clues only those closest to her would understand. Then it hit him. Not a place she'd go, but a place she'd leave something. A secure drop-off point. A memory. He remembered a small, independent bookstore on the edge of the city, a dusty haven called the Lore Keeper. It was a place they discovered together in college, filled with forgotten tomes and the scent of old paper. They had a silly ritual there. Whenever one of them found a particularly obscure or interesting book, they'd leave a cryptic note tucked inside a specific copy of an ancient, leather-bound edition of the Book of Lost Tales by J.R.R. Tolkien, hidden deep within the fantasy section. It was their secret message board, a childish game that had long since faded. But Jessica loved nostalgia. He hailed a cab, using cash, giving a roundabout address several blocks from the bookstore. The ride was tense, every glance from the driver, every sudden break, sending jolts of fear through him. He exited a few blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, keeping to the shadows, his eyes scanning every rooftop, every alleyway. The Lore Keeper was just as he remembered it, its dim light spilling onto the quiet street like a warm invitation. He pushed open the heavy wooden door, the familiar chime a stark contrast to the terror thrumming in his veins. The air inside was thick with the comforting smell of aged paper and ink. An elderly woman, Mrs. Albright, the owner, sat behind the counter, her spectacles perched on her nose, engrossed in a novel. She barely looked up, a small mercy. Michael navigated the labyrinthine aisles, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He made his way to the fantasy section, his fingers brushing against forgotten spines. The Book of Lost Tales. He remembered the exact shelf, the specific spot. His hand hovered, then he pulled it out. It was heavier than he remembered, the leather cover worn smooth. He flipped through the pages, his breath catching in his throat. Nothing. He checked the usual page number they'd used for notes. Empty. Despair began to creep in. Had he been wrong? Had she abandoned their silly game? Or worse, had they found it already? He was about to put the book back when something felt off. He ran his thumb along the spine, feeling a slight, almost imperceptible bulge. He pressed harder, and with a soft click, a tiny compartment sprang open from the spine's base, revealing a small black USB flash drive. His hands trembled as he pulled it out, a surge of adrenaline momentarily eclipsing his fear. She had left something. He quickly slipped the book back into its place, the flash drive clutched tightly in his palm. He bought a random, inexpensive paperback from Mrs. Albright, paid in cash, and left the store, his mind already racing. He couldn't risk using a public computer. He needed a secure, anonymous way to access the drive. He found an internet cafe several neighborhoods over, a dingy place filled with students and late-night gamers. He bought an hour of computer time, paid in cash, and chose a terminal in a back corner, partially obscured by a tall partition. His hands were clammy as he inserted the flash drive. A single file appeared on the screen, labeled only Chimera encrypted. Of course, Jessica wouldn't make it easy. He tried a few common passwords they'd used, old jokes, significant dates. Nothing. His frustration mounted, the precious minutes ticking away. Then he remembered her journal, the one he'd grabbed. He pulled it from his backpack, flipping through the pages. It was mostly filled with her flowing script, observations, and scientific notes, but near the back, tucked into a small envelope taped to the inside cover, was a folded piece of paper. On it, in her distinctive handwriting, was a series of seemingly random alphanumeric characters. A key. He typed the string into the password prompt. The screen flickered. A new folder appeared, containing not a single document but dozens. And a video file. He opened the video first. It was dark, grainy, shot on a low-quality camera. The image was shaky, focusing on a vast, sterile laboratory, rows of containment units glowing with an eerie blue light. Figures in hazmat suits moved silently, methodically. Then the camera zoomed in shakily on a single unit. Inside, something stirred. It was biological. Not human, not animal as he knew it. A grotesque hybrid, fluid-filled sacs pulsing, tubes snaking into its form. Its skin was translucent, revealing a network of veins and organs that seemed to shift and reform. It was horrifying, beautiful in its monstrosity, and utterly alien. A whisper, Jessica's voice, raspy and barely audible, accompanied the footage. Project Chimera. Not what they told us. It's accelerated evolution. They're trying to create something new, something controllable, a weapon, but it's unstable. They've lost control before. It's too dangerous. They're not just experimenting on cells, Michael. They're growing them. Full organisms. And the council, they're funding it. They believe it's the next step for humanity. A way to perfect us. To control us. The video cut out abruptly, replaced by a text document titled Manifest_Omega. Michael clicked it open. It wasn't a research paper. It was a list. A list of names. High-ranking government officials. Corporate CEOs. Senators. Even a Supreme Court justice. And next to each name, a series of dates, locations, and cryptic notations. He recognized some of the names, faces he'd seen on television, pillars of society. They were all connected to this council. The document detailed not only their involvement but also financial transactions, shell corporations, and coded communications. It was a web intricate and sprawling, far wider than he could have ever imagined. This wasn't just a rogue science project. This was a deep state conspiracy, a shadow government pulling strings from the highest echelons of power, and they were all invested in Project Chimera. His eyes scanned further down the list, and a name jumped out at him, chilling him to the bone. David Miller, the man who had interviewed Jessica, the man who had called him, feigning concern, the man who had been at his apartment. He was on the list. High up, a key player. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Miller hadn't been trying to help him. He had been assessing him, trying to gauge how much Michael knew, how much Jessica had confided. He had been the wolf in sheep's clothing, a direct link to the very organization hunting them. Michael quickly copied the entire contents of the flash drive to the Internet Cafe computer's temporary memory, then deleted the original file from the drive, and then deleted the file from the temporary memory. He formatted the flash drive, erasing any trace. He couldn't risk carrying this evidence on him. He had to assume they could track anything. He pulled the flash drive out, his mind reeling. The implications were staggering. If this was true, the very fabric of their society was a lie. The people sworn to protect them were actively creating this, and Jessica had been trying to expose it. She hadn't just stumbled onto a secret. She had uncovered the deadliest secret, one that threatened the very definition of humanity. He knew with a terrifying certainty that this information, if it ever saw the light of day, would bring down governments, shatter economies, and ignite global panic. It was a truth so profound, so monstrous, that those who guarded it would stop at absolutely nothing to keep it buried. And now he, Michael, held a piece of that truth. He was no longer just searching for Jessica. He was holding a ticking time bomb, a secret that could either save the world or destroy him. He was alone, hunted, and now burdened with the knowledge that made him the most dangerous man alive. He was alone, hunted, and now burdened with the knowledge that made him the most dangerous man alive. The revelation hit Michael like a physical blow. The encrypted data, finally decrypted after agonizing hours, wasn't just a collection of files. It was a sprawling, meticulously detailed blueprint for a future he couldn't have possibly imagined. It was Project Chimera, a code name that now echoed with chilling significance in his mind. This wasn't about a simple conspiracy or political maneuvering. This was about absolute, insidious control woven into the very fabric of society. His hands trembled as he stared at the glowing screen, the complex algorithms and predictive models painting a stark picture of a world slowly being re-engineered. Information, perception, reality itself, all meticulously curated and manipulated by an unseen hand. The scale of it was staggering, spanning decades, with tendrils reaching into every major institution, every media outlet, every digital platform. It was a silent, bloodless coup on human autonomy, executed with surgical precision. Jessica wasn't just a victim. She was a witness, perhaps even an operative trying to expose it from the inside. Her disappearance wasn't random. It was a consequence of her proximity to this colossal secret. The realization sent a cold dread through him, but also a surge of renewed purpose. He wasn't just looking for his friend anymore. He was holding the key to preventing an unthinkable future. But with that knowledge came an immediate, terrifying understanding of his own peril. The very act of accessing this data had undoubtedly triggered alarms. They knew. They were coming. He could feel it, an almost primal sense of being watched, the air around him suddenly thick with unseen eyes. The small, nondescript apartment, a temporary refuge he'd found through a network of old, forgotten contacts, felt like a glass cage. He moved with a frantic urgency, his mind racing through escape routes and contingency plans. Every shadow seemed to lengthen. Every distant siren seemed to be heading his way. He wiped the hard drive of the laptop he'd borrowed, scrubbing every trace of his presence, then smashed it beyond repair. The USB drive, the source of this terrifying truth, he swallowed, a desperate, illogical act born of pure panic, and the need to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. It was a crude, uncomfortable solution, but effective. He grabbed a worn backpack, stuffing it with essentials. A few changes of clothes, a burner phone he'd never activated, a small wad of cash. He had to assume his bank accounts, his digital footprint, everything he owned was compromised. He was a ghost now, or he needed to become one. As he peered through the blinds, the street below seemed normal, but his heightened senses picked up on subtle anomalies. A black sedan parked a block down, its windows tinted, had been there too long. A man in a dark suit, lingering by a newspaper stand, seemed to be scanning the windows of the building. Paranoia, yes, but a justified paranoia. These people didn't play games. They erased problems. Michael slipped out the back entrance, moving through a maze of alleyways and service corridors. He kept to the shadows, his footsteps light, his eyes constantly scanning, assessing threats. He knew the city, its hidden veins and arteries, from years of restless exploration. It was a skill he'd never thought would save his life. He blended into the evening rush, a face in the crowd, a phantom moving through the concrete jungle. The data had revealed that Project Chimera's Phase 2 was imminent, a critical juncture in their plan for global manipulation. The details were still hazy, complex algorithms and coded references, but the urgency was undeniable. He had the what and the how, but not the when or the where. And crucially, he didn't have the complete picture of Jessica's involvement or her ultimate fate. He needed more. He needed help. Going to the authorities was out of the question. The data explicitly showed how deeply compromised various government agencies and intelligence organizations were. They were either unwitting pawns or willing collaborators. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. He had to find someone outside the system, someone brilliant, discreet, and fiercely loyal. One name surfaced from the depths of his past: David Miller. A brilliant hacker, a digital ghost, a man who lived off the grid long before it became a necessity. They'd been inseparable in college, two outsiders drawn together by a shared love for breaking codes and questioning authority. David was a recluse, a genius with a deep-seated distrust of power, and, if Michael remembered correctly, an unshakable moral compass. But he hadn't spoken to David in years. Reaching him would be a challenge, a dangerous gamble. Michael found himself on a bus, heading towards the industrial outskirts of the city, a place where surveillance cameras were sparser and anonymity was easier to maintain. He mentally pieced together a coded message, something only David would recognize, a reference to an obscure programming joke from their college days. He'd send it via a series of dead drops, a convoluted path of encrypted messages bouncing through untraceable servers, a digital breadcrumb trail that only David would know to follow. It was slow, risky, but it was the only way. As the bus rumbled past darkened warehouses, a sudden jolt threw him forward. Tires screeched. A black SUV had cut them off, slamming against the side of the bus. Men in dark tactical gear poured out, moving with chilling efficiency. They knew. They had tracked him. Adrenaline surged through Michael. He didn't hesitate. As panic erupted on the bus, he kicked open an emergency window, scrambling out before anyone could react. He hit the ground running, ignoring the shouts, the blaring sirens that were now closing in from multiple directions. He was a hunted animal, instinct taking over. He sprinted through a disused lot, narrowly dodging a bullet that splintered the concrete beside him. The pursuers were relentless, their movements coordinated, professional. They weren't just government agents, they were specialists trained for this. He heard their heavy boots pounding behind him, their radios crackling with commands. Michael ducked into an abandoned factory, the cavernous space echoing with his ragged breaths. He used the cover of rusting machinery and towering stacks of decaying crates, moving with a desperate agility. He could hear them fanning out, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. He spotted a high catwalk, a risky climb, but his only option. He scaled the rusting ladder, his muscles burning, his hands raw. From his perch, he watched them below, their frustration palpable. They were good, but they weren't omniscient. He had found a momentary blind spot. He used the opportunity to send the first part of his coded message to David, a single untraceable burst of data, a digital whisper into the void. It was a desperate plea, a Hail Mary pass. He knew David was notoriously cautious, wary of any digital footprint. The message would trigger alarms, not just for Michael's pursuers, but for David himself. He could only hope that their old bond, their shared idealism, would compel David to respond. His escape from the factory was another blur of close calls, a frantic dash through the night, leaving a trail of discarded clothes and misdirection. He stole a bicycle, then abandoned it for a taxi, paying cash, instructing the driver to take him to a bustling downtown area, then another, hoping to lose the digital net that was surely tightening around him. By dawn, exhausted and running on fumes, Michael found himself in a quiet, anonymous diner, nursing a lukewarm coffee. He felt like a ghost, an observer in his own life. The USB drive, now a foreign object inside him, was a constant, unsettling reminder of the burden he carried. He was playing a game of chess against an invisible opponent, and the stakes were nothing less than the future of humanity. He checked the burner phone, a flicker of hope in his chest. No direct reply from David, but a subtle, almost imperceptible change in a long-dormant online forum they used to frequent. A single cryptic post disguised as a comment on an ancient programming thread. It was David. He had seen the message. He was acknowledging it. The relief was immense, quickly replaced by a fresh wave of anxiety. David was in, but now David was also in danger. Michael had pulled his closest friend into the deadliest secret the world had ever known. The weight of that responsibility settled heavily upon him. He still didn't know where Jessica was, or what her role truly was, but the fragmented data hinted at a specific location, a research facility, deep within the heart of the country, where Phase 2 of Project Chimera was being finalized. He had to get there. He had to find Jessica. And he had to expose the truth before it was too late. The data, like a jagged shard of glass, pierced through Michael's last vestiges of hope for a simple solution. It wasn't just a location. It was a fortress, deep within the heart of a vast, unpopulated stretch of desert in Nevada. A research facility, hidden from satellite view, shielded by a complex web of jamming signals, and an outer perimeter designed to deter even the most determined snoop. This was where Phase 2 of Project Chimera was being finalized, and the very thought of what that entailed sent a cold dread through him. He had to get there. He had to find Jessica, and he had to expose the truth before it was too late. Panic, cold and sharp, threatened to paralyze him. He was one man hunted with dwindling resources against an organization that could seemingly disappear people at will. But then a familiar resolve, forged in the crucible of his military training, clicked into place. Fear was a luxury he couldn't afford. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and began to think, to plan, to strategize. First, anonymity. He couldn't risk using his own identity or even his existing burner phones. He needed to vanish, at least from their immediate radar. He emptied his remaining cash from the hidden compartment in his old backpack, enough for a few days of travel if he was careful. He found an all-night convenience store, paid cash for a cheap, untraceable prepaid phone, and a burner laptop from a pawn shop. Every transaction was cash, every step meticulously planned to avoid digital breadcrumbs. He spent hours in a dingy motel, cross-referencing the facility's coordinates with topographical maps and satellite imagery he could access through encrypted public networks. The facility was massive, sprawling over several acres, surrounded by a double fence, watchtowers, and what looked like a subterranean entrance disguised as a natural rock formation. There was no direct route, no obvious weakness. His mind raced through scenarios: infiltration, evasion, extraction. He was a data analyst, not a field operative, but his training had included extensive modules on covert operations, surveillance, and basic survival in hostile environments. He could improvise, adapt. He had to. The journey began under the cloak of night. He purchased an older model pickup truck, again with cash, from a private seller in a small, forgotten town hours away from his current hideout. The truck was unremarkable, blending into the background of rural America. He drove eastward, then south, avoiding major highways, sticking to back roads that wound through forgotten towns and endless stretches of farmland. The landscape gradually shifted, the verdant greens giving way to the dusty browns and reds of the American West. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every distant headlight in his rearview mirror was a potential pursuer. He drove for hours, fueled by stale coffee and an unyielding urgency, stopping only for gas, always paying cash, always keeping his hood low, his eyes scanning. His paranoia was a constant companion, a buzzing hum beneath his skin. He imagined their satellites tracking him, their agents closing in. He felt the weight of Jessica's unknown fate pressing down on him, a silent scream in his mind. He remembered the fragmented data from the server, the whispered implications of Phase 2. It wasn't just about creating Chimera, it was about deploying it. Mass production, perhaps, or worse, mass testing. The thought of Jessica, or anyone else, being subjected to a weaponized pathogen, controlled and modified by a clandestine organization, curdled his stomach. He had to assume the worst, and that meant time was an enemy as potent as the organization itself. After 2 days of relentless driving, broken only by brief, restless naps in the truck cab, Michael finally reached the periphery of the vast, desolate region marked on his maps. The air was dry, hot, and still. Towering mesas and jagged rock formations stretched to the horizon, painted in hues of ochre and rust by the setting sun. This was no place for a high-tech research facility, which was precisely why it was perfect. He parked the truck miles away from the suspected location, hidden in a dry riverbed, covered with a tarp and camouflaged with local scrub brush. From there, he proceeded on foot, carrying only a small backpack containing water, some energy bars, a pair of binoculars, and the burner phone and laptop. The desert floor was unforgiving, loose gravel and sharp rocks crunching under his boots. The silence was profound, broken only by the whisper of the wind and the pounding of his own heart. As he drew closer, the terrain grew more rugged, providing natural cover. He scaled a small mesa, carefully choosing his vantage point, and set up his binoculars. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows. And then he saw it. In the distance, nestled within a sprawling canyon, was a complex of structures that defied the natural landscape. High reinforced concrete walls topped with razor wire snaked for miles. Watchtowers, surprisingly few, but strategically placed, dotted the perimeter. What truly struck him was the sheer scale of the operation. It wasn't just a building. It was a small, self-contained city, albeit one designed for secrecy and control. He scanned the perimeter, looking for any sign of a weakness. Infrared cameras, motion sensors, pressure plates. He knew they would all be there. The main entrance seemed to be a heavily fortified gate, manned by armed guards. Several unmarked black SUVs were parked near what looked like an administrative building. No obvious service entrances, no unguarded utility tunnels. This place was locked down tight. Through his binoculars, he observed the routine. Guard rotations, supply trucks entering and exiting. Always through the main gate, always with meticulous security checks. The air was thick with a palpable tension, even from this distance. He saw figures moving within the compound, indistinct in the twilight, but their posture suggested a constant state of alertness. His gaze lingered on a section of the perimeter where a natural rock face seemed to merge seamlessly with the man-made walls. There was a subtle discoloration, a slight irregularity in the rock texture. It was too perfect, too smooth in places. He zoomed in. A faint seam, almost invisible to the naked eye, suggested a hidden entrance, perhaps a service tunnel or an emergency exit, disguised to blend with the environment. It was a long shot, but it was the only potential vulnerability he had found so far. He spent the entire night observing, mapping out the facility's layout in his mind, noting patrol patterns, light sources, potential blind spots. The desert air grew cold, but he barely noticed the chill. His mind was a whirlwind of calculations, risk assessments, and desperate hope. He knew that if he could get inside, the real challenge would begin. Finding Jessica in such a massive, secure facility would be like finding a needle in a haystack, and escaping with her, along with any evidence, would be a miracle. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of purple and orange, Michael lowered his binoculars. He had a plan, rudimentary but actionable. He would approach the disguised entrance under the cover of the next night. He would need to be silent, swift, and utterly invisible. He had to assume that every inch of this facility was monitored, every shadow watched. The stakes were immeasurable. Jessica's life, and potentially the lives of countless others, depended on his success. The shadow government's deadliest secret was here, within these walls, and he was about to walk right into its heart. David pushed open the heavy, unmarked service door, its silent swing a testament to the facility's meticulous design. The air inside hit him with a cold metallic tang, a stark contrast to the humid night air he just left. He was no longer in the familiar world of bustling streets and digital noise. He had stepped into the hushed, clinical heart of an unknown empire. The corridor stretched before him, an endless tunnel of polished steel and faint, humming light. No windows, no cracks, just perfect, manufactured silence broken only by the almost imperceptible thrumming of unseen machinery. Every step echoed unnaturally, a stark reminder of his isolation. He adjusted the earpiece, checking the signal. Nothing. The facility was a Faraday cage, designed to keep secrets in and information out. He was truly alone. He moved with the precision of a ghost, his specialized gear making him near invisible to thermal and motion sensors. His custom-built device, a marvel of miniaturized hacking tech, pulsed softly in his palm, scanning for network nodes, security cameras, anything that could give him an edge. The facility was massive, a honeycomb of corridors and labs, but his intel, painstakingly pieced together from fragmented data packets and whispered rumors, pointed to a specific sector, Sub-Level 7. The deeper he went, the more the atmosphere shifted. The sterile hum grew louder, more insistent, a low thrum that vibrated through the soles of his boots. He passed biometric scanners that glowed with an eerie green light, their silent vigilance a constant threat. He saw reinforced blast doors, their seals tight, indicating areas of extreme importance. He reached a junction, a massive circular hub with multiple corridors branching off like spokes on a wheel. A digital map projected onto a wall showed an intricate layout, but crucial sections were redacted, blacked out like censored documents. This was where the real secrets began. His device finally chirped, a faint signal indicating a secure network. It was a local loop, isolated from the outside world, but connected to every system within. This was his entry point. With practiced ease, he initiated the bypass protocols. Lines of code scrolled across his device's tiny screen, a silent battle against layers of encryption. Minutes stretched into an eternity as he wrestled with the facility's digital defenses. Finally, a soft ping. Access granted. He now had a partial map, limited access to security feeds, and a direct line into the facility's internal communications. He bypassed the cameras in the immediate vicinity, creating a temporary blind spot. His eyes scanned the new map, searching for anything that looked like a detention center or a research lab. The deadliest secret wasn't just about data. It was about people. Jessica. He had to find her. He navigated deeper, the air growing colder, heavier. He saw figures on the security feeds now, guards in dark, unmarked uniforms, their faces grim, their movements precise. They were highly trained, operating with a silent efficiency that spoke of constant drilling. He had to be even more careful. He slipped past a patrol, pressing himself against a cold wall, his heart hammering against his ribs. The guard's footsteps faded and David exhaled slowly, the metallic taste of fear sharp on his tongue. This wasn't merely a data heist. It was a rescue mission into the lion's den. He found it. A section labeled Project Chimera. The name itself sent a chill down his spine. It was located on sublevel 7, exactly where his intel had suggested. The area was heavily fortified, surrounded by multiple layers of security, including a high-frequency sonic barrier designed to disorient and incapacitate. He checked the schematics. There were multiple labs, holding cells, and a central chamber. The purpose remained veiled, redacted even from the internal network. But the sheer level of security, the cryptic name, it all screamed danger. He disabled the sonic barrier, a delicate dance of frequency manipulation and timing. The hum in the air shifted, a subtle change that only he would notice. He approached the main entrance to Project Chimera, a massive steel door with a glowing biometric scanner. This wasn't going to be easy. He knew he couldn't simply hack it. He needed a physical key or perhaps a living one. He reviewed the internal camera feeds he had access to. One showed a small break room, a few guards taking a rotation. Perfect. He observed their movements, their patterns. One guard, a burly man with a distinctive scar over his left eye, consistently left his access card on the table while he poured coffee. It was a risky move, but David had no other choice. He timed his approach, slipping into the break room during a shift change, when the room was momentarily empty. He grabbed the card, his fingers brushing against the still warm plastic, and was out before the next guard even turned the corner. A surge of adrenaline coursed through him. He was in. He returned to the biometric scanner, his hand trembling slightly as he swiped the stolen card. The light flashed green. The heavy door hissed open, revealing a short, brightly lit corridor. On the other side, another door, almost identical, but with a different label, Containment Unit 7B. His stomach clenched. This had to be it. This had to be where Jessica was. He pushed through the second door, stepping into a sterile circular chamber. The air was colder here, much colder, and tinged with something clinical, almost medicinal. The walls were lined with frosted glass panels, each one a discrete window into what appeared to be individual holding cells. He scanned them, his heart pounding. Empty. All of them. His breath caught in his throat. No, this couldn't be right. He had followed every lead, every fragmented piece of information. Then he saw it. Not in a cell, but in the center of the chamber. A massive cylindrical containment unit, far larger than any of the others, stood shrouded in a faint bluish haze. It was made of a material he didn't recognize, opaque and shimmering, emanating a low, steady hum. A single, small viewport, no bigger than his palm, was set into its side, but it was too high to see through without assistance. He approached cautiously, his device scanning the unit. The readings were off the charts. High-energy signatures, bio-readings that were fluctuating wildly, and something else, a concentrated field of an unknown frequency. This wasn't just a holding cell. This was a prison for something extraordinary, or perhaps a highly advanced experimental chamber. He tried to access the unit's controls, but they were isolated, air-gapped from the main facility network. He was locked out. Frustration gnawed at him. He was so close yet so far. He heard a faint sound, a rhythmic mechanical pulse, coming from within the unit. It was almost like a heartbeat, but too regular, too artificial. He desperately searched for a way to get a better view. He noticed a maintenance panel on the floor, almost flush with the polished surface. He pried it open, revealing a tangle of wires and conduits. Among them, a small blinking LED. A manual override? He traced the wires, his mind racing. This was a risk. Huge risk. Tampering with the primary containment unit could trigger alarms, or worse, unleash whatever was inside. But Jessica? If she was in there, he had no choice. He connected his device to the blinking LED, initiating a diagnostic scan. The screen flickered, displaying cryptic data streams and warnings he barely understood. The unit was not just containing something, it was actively processing it. Or perhaps creating it. The bio readings were human but distorted, amplified, almost impossible. And then a single word flashed on his screen, repeating over and over. Synapse. Synapse. The connection between neurons. What could they be doing that involved synapses on such a massive, contained scale? His mind reeled, trying to connect the pieces. Was this a mind control project? A way to weaponize consciousness? The implications were terrifying. He heard footsteps approaching, heavy and deliberate, echoing from the corridor he had just come through. They were coming for him. He had triggered something. He looked at the massive containment unit, at the small, unreachable viewport. He had to see inside. He had to know if Jessica was there and what Project Chimera truly was. He made a split-second decision. He initiated a full system integrity check on the containment unit, knowing it would temporarily stabilize its internal systems and hopefully give him a brief window to access the viewport controls. It was a desperate gamble. The machine whirred, its hum intensifying, and a small robotic arm extended from the unit's side, positioning a camera directly in front of the viewport. The image appeared on his device. Through the hazy blue light, he saw it. Not Jessica, not directly, but something far more disturbing. Inside the massive cylinder, suspended in a translucent, viscous fluid, was a network of glowing, pulsating tendrils. They pulsed with an eerie, rhythmic light, connecting to what looked like dozens, perhaps hundreds of human brains, all floating in individual smaller pods, interconnected by these luminous pathways. Each brain was subtly shifting, twitching as if alive yet utterly detached. It was a grotesque, beautiful, and horrifying sight. And then, in the center of this horrifying neural network, a single familiar face. Her eyes were wide open, unfocused, staring into nothingness. Jessica. She was there, suspended, connected, her mind seemingly integrated into this monstrous living web. She was alive, but not herself. She was part of the synapse. The footsteps were closer now, just outside the door. He heard the metallic clang of weapons being readied. He had moments. He had found Jessica, but the truth was far worse than he could have ever imagined. The shadow government wasn't just holding her. They were using her. They were using them all. This wasn't a secret about power or control. This was about rewriting humanity itself. He had stumbled into a nightmare. He knew he had to get her out, but how? And what exactly was this synapse doing? He felt a cold dread settle deep in his bones. The door began to hiss open. The door hissed open, revealing not a guard or a bustling lab, but a pristine, almost clinically sterile hallway. Michael flattened himself against the cold metal wall, heart hammering against his ribs, praying the sensors hadn't picked him up. The corridor stretched endlessly, illuminated by an unnerving, cool white light that seemed to drain all color from the surroundings. He peered out cautiously. The hall was empty. A faint rhythmic hum vibrated through the floor, a sound that had been masked by the machinery in Emily's chamber. It was the sound of the entire facility breathing. He had to move. He slipped out, his steps barely a whisper on the polished floor. Each shadow seemed to lengthen, to twist into watchful eyes. He moved with the practiced stealth of a predator, though he felt more like prey. He passed several identical doors, each labeled with cryptic alphanumeric codes. Then he saw it. A larger reinforced door, glowing faintly with a blue light, emblazoned with a single chilling word, Synapse. Below it, a smaller text read, Neural Network Integration Project Chimera. Project Chimera. The name alone sent a shiver down his spine. He remembered old myths, creatures stitched together from different beings. This wasn't about creation, it was about fusion. He pressed his ear to the door. A low murmur of voices, then a distinct authoritative voice cut through the hum. It was a woman's voice, calm, intelligent, and utterly devoid of warmth. Dr. Vance, the latest integration cycle is complete. Subject Delta 7 shows 98.7% neural synchronization with the primary network. Cognitive mapping is stable. Michael felt a jolt. Subject Delta 7. Was Emily Delta 7? Or was there an entire fleet of Emilys connected to this network? Excellent, Dr. Miller. The woman, Dr. Vance, replied. Her voice was like ice. Prepare for Phase 3. We need to begin testing external stimulus response. Remember, the goal isn't just synchronization. It's control. Absolute, unquestioning control. The human brain is a marvel of complexity, but also a mess of unpredictable variables. Synapse eliminates those variables. It creates harmony, a single unified consciousness guided by a singular purpose. Michael's blood ran cold. Control. Unified consciousness. This wasn't just about weaponizing minds, it was about subsuming them, erasing individuality. He imagined Emily, her vibrant spirit, her sharp wit, slowly being absorbed, her thoughts no longer her own, her will replaced by the cold, calculating logic of the synapse. He had to see. He had to know. He looked for a way in. A small, almost invisible panel next to the door. He recognized the type of security system from his research into corporate espionage. A biometric scanner, but also a manual override panel, probably for engineers. He pulled out the modified device he'd swiped from the guard earlier. A small multi-tool with various electronic probes. He worked quickly, his fingers flying over the delicate circuitry, bypassing the biometric lock. He could feel the eyes of the facility on him, even though no one was there. The pressure was immense. The door clicked softly. Michael eased it open just a crack enough to peer inside. The room was vast, dominated by a massive holographic projection of a human brain, pulsing with intricate light patterns. Wires and conduits snaked across the floor, connecting to rows of what looked like advanced server racks, humming with a chilling energy. In the center of the room, behind a reinforced glass partition, he saw her. Not Emily. Another woman. She was strapped into a complex chair, a delicate crown of electrodes on her head, her eyes wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. Her body twitched subtly, almost imperceptibly, as if she were wrestling with an invisible force. Around her, technicians moved with practiced efficiency, monitoring screens filled with graphs and data. And then he saw Dr. Vance. She was elegant, sharp, with severe black hair pulled back tightly, her eyes piercing and intelligent. She stood before a large console, observing the holographic brain. The ethical considerations are irrelevant, Dr. Miller, Vance said, her voice echoing slightly in the vast chamber. We are not destroying consciousness. We are perfecting it. Imagine a world without dissent, without conflict. A world where every mind works in perfect concert, guided by the most logical, most efficient directives. Synapse is the blueprint for a new era of human evolution. A global consciousness free from the chaos of individual thought. Michael gripped the edge of the door, knuckles white. A global consciousness. This was beyond anything he could have imagined. They weren't just creating super soldiers, they were building a hive mind. A collective. And Emily, was she meant to be one of its nodes? Or worse, one of its creators? He scanned the room quickly. He needed information. He needed proof. His eyes landed on a smaller console, unattended, displaying what looked like system logs. If he could just get to it, download some files. He decided. He had to risk it. He slipped into the room, moving low, using the shadows cast by the server racks as cover. The hum of the machinery was deafening now, a constant reminder of the immense power contained within these walls. He reached the console. His heart hammered. He pulled out a small, encrypted USB drive from his pocket, a habit from his investigative journalism days. He plugged it in, accessing system logs, downloading manifest, retrieving subject profiles. The screen blinked rapidly. He was pulling everything. Every detail about Synapse, every subject, every chilling experiment. Dr. Vance, we have an anomaly, a technician suddenly announced, his voice tight with alarm. Unregistered access to Auxiliary Console 7. Intruder alert. Michael froze. He glanced up. Dr. Vance's head snapped around, her eyes sharp as a hawk's sweeping across the room. He was exposed. He pulled the USB drive, ripping it from the port just as a piercing alarm began to wail through the facility. Red lights flashed, casting the sterile room in a horrifying pulsing glow. Intruder! Vance shrieked, pointing directly at him. Security! Lock down all sectors. Do not let him escape. He has critical data. Michael didn't wait. He sprinted back towards the door, the USB drive clutched tightly in his hand. Guards, seemingly materializing from the shadows of the hallway, were already converging. They were heavily armed, their uniforms sleek and dark. He burst through the door, slamming it shut behind him, the sound of the alarm deafening. He knew he had minutes, maybe seconds, before they breached the synapse chamber. He had to get back to Emily. He had to get her out. But how? He was trapped in a high-security facility, alarms blaring, with an entire army of corporate soldiers closing in. And he had a USB drive full of secrets that could turn the world upside down. He raced down the corridor, the red emergency lights painting his path in a frantic strobe. He could hear heavy boots gaining on him. He wasn't trained for this. He was a journalist, not a spy. But Emily, her face flashed in his mind, pale and vulnerable. He remembered her fierce spirit, her unwavering belief in truth. He couldn't leave her to become a part of their horrifying, unified consciousness. He reached a junction. Left or right? He remembered the layout of the facility from his brief, terrifying glimpse of the schematics. Right led to deeper security, left led back eventually to the initial holding cells and hopefully to Emily's chamber. He took a sharp left. He could hear the guards shouting orders, their voices amplified by the echoing corridors. Sector B7. Target acquired. Do not engage until primary containment is secured. Primary containment. They weren't just after him, they were after the data. The USB drive felt like a burning coal in his hand. He rounded a corner and saw it. A heavy blast door beginning to descend, sealing off the corridor. He had mere seconds. He dove, sliding under the rapidly closing door, scraping his shoulder painfully against the cold metal. He rolled, coming up against the opposite wall, gasping for breath. He was in another section of the facility, slightly less sterile, with more visible pipes and conduits running along the walls. He heard the thud of the blast door sealing behind him, and the shouts of the guards growing fainter. He had bought himself a moment, perhaps, but he was still deep inside enemy territory. He looked around, disoriented. The alarms continued to blare, a constant shrill reminder of his predicament. He needed a way out, and he needed to find Emily. He checked his phone. No signal. Of course, the entire facility was probably shielded. He pressed a finger to his bleeding shoulder, wincing. He wasn't going to make it out unscathed. But the thought of Dr. Vance's chilling words, a single unified consciousness guided by a singular purpose, spurred him on. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. This was about something far, far bigger. A terrifying vision of humanity's future, orchestrated by a shadow government seeking ultimate control. He had to expose them. He had to. He spotted a service hatch, half hidden behind a large ventilation shaft. It was small, cramped, but it offered an alternative to the main corridors. He tried the handle, locked naturally, but it looked like a standard industrial lock. He pulled out his multi-tool again, his hands shaking slightly from adrenaline and exhaustion. He worked quickly, the sounds of the facility's frantic search growing louder again. They were adapting, finding new routes, closing in from all sides. The hatch clicked open. He squeezed inside, pulling the hatch shut behind him. He was now in a dark, narrow service tunnel, smelling faintly of ozone and dust. He could hear the heavy thud of boots directly above him, the urgent whispers of guards just feet away. He held his breath, pressing himself against the cold metal, the USB drive still clutched in his hand. He was in deeper than he'd ever imagined, and the path ahead was darker, more perilous than any story he'd ever chased. He was no longer just a journalist. He was a reluctant warrior in a silent war for the very soul of humanity. His only hope was to find Emily and somehow, impossibly, make it out alive with the truth. The question wasn't if they would find him, but when. And what would they do to him to ensure their deadliest secret remained buried forever? The question wasn't if they would find him, but when. And what would they do to him to ensure their deadliest secret remained buried forever? Michael knew the clock wasn't just ticking. It was screaming. Every shadow seemed to hold a watcher. Every distant siren a confirmation of his hunted status. He'd barely escaped the surveillance net in the city center. A desperate scramble through service tunnels and forgotten basements, emerging into the biting night air of the industrial district like a ghost. His phone, a dead weight in his pocket, was a beacon for them. He'd ditched it, along with anything else that could be traced, relying only on the cash he'd had on him and the tattered clothes on his back. Paranoia was a new, unwelcome companion, whispering warnings from every dark alley and every passing car. His mind, however, wasn't just consumed by fear. It was burning with a singular, desperate purpose. Emily. Where was she? Was she safe? Had they found her too? He replayed their last conversation, her frantic voice, the cut-off scream. A cold dread gripped his stomach. He had to find her. She was his anchor, his reason, and perhaps his only hope for understanding the full scope of this nightmare. He remembered her telling him about a safe house, a small, nondescript apartment she kept for emergencies, away from their shared life. It was in an older part of the city, an area they rarely visited together. His only clue was a cryptic street name she'd once mentioned in passing, a seemingly random detail he'd committed to memory because Emily always had a plan. Now that faint memory was a lifeline. Navigating the city without a phone, without a car, was an exercise in pure desperation. He walked, he ran, he hitched rides on the back of delivery trucks, blending into the anonymity of the late-night workforce, his face obscured by the darkness and the grime of his escape. Each step was a gamble, each glance over his shoulder a confirmation of the danger. He felt their eyes even when he couldn't see them. They were everywhere, a vast, unseen network that seemed to anticipate his every move. Hours bled into a blur of exhaustion and adrenaline. The city transformed from a familiar home into a labyrinth of threats. He saw the subtle signs. A sedan parked too long on a deserted street, a figure lingering in a doorway, a pair of eyes that met his for a fraction too long before looking away. These weren't random occurrences. They were the silent sentinels of the organization, tightening the noose. He finally reached the general vicinity of Emily's safe house just as dawn began to paint the sky in bruised purples and grays. The street name, Willow Creek Lane, echoed in his mind. It was a street of aging brick buildings, small businesses, and a few residential units above storefronts. Nothing stood out. It was perfect. Too perfect. A sudden sharp pain lanced through his side. He stumbled, his hand flying to the source. A deep burning ache. He'd been grazed by a bullet during his initial escape, a frantic sprint across an open plaza. He'd ignored it, pushed it down, but the wound was now weeping, staining his shirt a dark crimson. He leaned against a grimy wall, fighting to control his breathing, the pain a stark reminder of his mortality and the relentless pursuit. He forced himself to move, scanning the building numbers. He found it. A worn wooden door tucked between a closed dry cleaner and a dusty antique shop. Apartment 3B. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. This had to be it. He fumbled with the lock, his fingers trembling, the adrenaline making his movements clumsy. It clicked open with a soft thud. The apartment was small, sparsely furnished, and meticulously clean. A single lamp was on, casting a soft glow over a stack of books on a small table, and a half-empty mug of tea. Felt like Emily, but she wasn't there. A wave of crushing disappointment washed over him, threatening to drown his spirit. He sagged against the doorframe, the wound in his side throbbing in protest. Then he saw it. On the small, cluttered desk in the corner, beneath a stack of old scientific journals, was a note. It was folded precisely, Emily's neat handwriting on the outside. "Michael, if you make it here." His hand shook as he unfolded it. The words blurred for a moment through his exhausted eyes. "Michael, I know you're coming. I hoped you would. They're closing in faster than I thought. I had to move. They know about this place now too, I think. I left something for you. A key. It's taped under the bottom drawer of the kitchen cabinet, the one next to the sink. It's for a locker at the old Union Station baggage claim. Locker 237. Inside you'll find everything. The evidence. My research. Everything we need to expose them. It's the only way. Don't try to find me yet. It's too dangerous. Get the package. Get it to someone trustworthy. Someone outside. I'm going off the grid, deeper into the whispers. I have to confirm one last piece. If I don't make it back, you have to finish this. The truth about Project Chimera. It's worse than we ever imagined. It's not just about control, Michael. It's about rewriting the very fabric of existence. Be careful. Trust no one, especially not anyone from the inside. I love you. Asterisk. Emily. Michael stared at the note, the words burning into his brain. Project Chimera, rewriting the very fabric of existence. The implication sent a chill colder than any night air down his spine. Emily was alive. That was the first, most powerful emotion. But she was in even deeper trouble, chasing something far more terrifying than he'd realized. And she'd left him a mission. A deadly one. He found the key exactly where she said it would be. A small brass key cold in his palm. Union Station. A public place but also a hub of constant surveillance. A perfect trap or a brilliant hiding spot. He had no choice. Emily wouldn't have sent him into a suicide mission without a reason. He had to move quickly. He cleaned and bandaged his wound as best he could with supplies he found in the bathroom. The pain a dull ache now, a constant companion. He drank water, tried to clear his head. He was no longer just running, he was on a quest. A quest for truth, for Emily, and for the very future she hinted was at stake. As he prepared to leave the apartment, a faint glint of metal caught his eye on the floor near the window. He knelt, his heart leaping into his throat. A tiny, almost invisible micro-tracking device. They had found this place. They were probably watching it right now. He was lucky Emily had moved. He was lucky he hadn't walked straight into their arms. He crushed the device under his heel, the minuscule crunch swallowed by the silence of the apartment. He slipped out, moving with renewed urgency, the note clutched in his hand, the key burning a hole in his pocket. Union Station wasn't just a destination. It was the next battlefield. And whatever Project Chimera entailed, whatever rewriting the very fabric of existence meant, he was about to find out. The deadliest secret was no longer just a whispered threat. It was a tangible, terrifying reality, waiting for him in Locker 237. The question now was, could he reach it before they reached him? And what exactly was he about to unleash upon the world? The question now was, could he reach it before they reached him? And what exactly was he about to unleash upon the world? David's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against his ribs as he sped through the city's late-morning traffic. Every rearview mirror glance was a desperate scan, every shadow a potential pursuer. He ditched the stolen car a few blocks away, melting into the bustling sidewalks, a ghost among the living, his only compass the coordinates etched into his memory, the First National Bank on Elm Street. It was a monolith of granite and glass, an anachronism in a city constantly reinventing itself, a place that felt solid, unmoving, and utterly unyielding, perfect for hiding secrets. He entered the grand lobby, the heavy brass doors sighing shut behind him, muffling the cacophony of the city into a distant hum. The air inside was hushed, cool, carrying the faint scent of old money and polished wood. He saw the usual array of tellers, a few customers, and a security guard, Robert, a burly man he'd seen tending the front desk many times, now chatting idly with a colleague. David forced a calm demeanor, a practiced blankness on his face, moving with a purpose that wasn't frantic but efficient. He approached the private vault desk where a woman named Sarah, with kind eyes and a perpetually pleasant smile, sat behind a frosted glass partition. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," she greeted, her voice a soft murmur. "Here to access your safe deposit box?" David nodded, his throat tight. "Yes, Sarah. Box 237. She typed his name into her system, her fingers moving with practiced ease. "And your key, please?" He fumbled in his pocket, pulling out the small, ornate key that felt impossibly heavy in his palm. It was the last piece of the puzzle his father had left him, a relic from a life David was only now beginning to understand. Sarah took the key, scanned it, and then produced a laminated card. "Please follow me, Mr. Miller." The walk to the vault was agonizing. Every step echoed loudly in the marble hallway. David was acutely aware of the security cameras tracking his every move, the silent eyes of the bank watching, recording. He tried to project an aura of normalcy, a man simply retrieving important documents, not a desperate fugitive on the precipice of uncovering a global conspiracy. The vault door itself was a behemoth, a circular slab of steel that seemed to defy entry, its gears and tumblers a testament to impenetrable security. Sarah slid her card, entered a code, and with a low hydraulic hiss, the massive door swung inward, revealing a cavernous room lined with thousands of metal boxes, stacked from floor to ceiling. The air inside the vault was still, cold, and carried a faint metallic tang. It felt like a tomb of untold stories, each box a silent witness to lives lived and secrets kept. Sarah led him down a narrow aisle, her heels clicking softly on the polished concrete floor. David's eyes darted left and right, scanning the numbers, his heart rate accelerating with each passing box. Finally, she stopped before a row near the back at eye level. "Here we are, Mr. Miller. Box 237. She inserted her master key, turned it, and then handed David his own key. His hand trembled slightly as he slid it into the lock. The click was surprisingly loud in the silence, a tiny sound that reverberated through the vast space, signaling a monumental shift in his world. He pulled the small rectangular box from its slot, his fingers brushing against cold metal. It was heavier than he expected. Sarah gave him a polite nod. "Take your time. Call me when you're done." She gave him a small, private viewing room just off the main vault, a modest space with a single table and chair, designed for quiet contemplation. David closed the door to the viewing room, the click of the latch echoing in the small space. He placed the box on the table, his breath catching in his throat. This was it, the culmination of a terrifying journey, the answer to a question that had consumed his father and now threatened to consume him. With trembling hands, he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, were 3 items. The first was a small ruggedized USB drive. It was dark gray, industrial-looking, with no discernible markings beyond a faint, almost invisible serial number etched into its side. It looked like it could withstand a nuclear blast, and David knew with a chilling certainty that whatever data it held was considered equally indestructible. This was no ordinary flash drive. This was a digital fortress, the modern key to an ancient lock. Next to it lay an antique, leather-bound journal. Its cover was worn smooth with age, the pages within yellowed and brittle. There were no words on the front, only a single stylized symbol pressed into the leather. A serpent devouring its own tail, forming an endless circle. David had seen that symbol before, in the cryptic notes his father had left behind, a fleeting glimpse in a forgotten book. He carefully opened the journal. The entries were not in English, nor any language he recognized. They were a series of intricate, flowing symbols, interspersed with precise geometric diagrams, and what looked like astronomical charts. It was a code, a cipher, a language unto itself, hinting at a knowledge far older and more profound than any modern conspiracy. The third item was a faded black and white photograph. It depicted a group of 12 stern-faced men and women, dressed in formal, almost ceremonial attire, standing before a grand, imposing building whose architecture was both familiar and alien, reminiscent of classical structures yet strangely devoid of identifying features. Their faces were etched with an unnerving intensity, their eyes holding a shared, knowing gaze that sent a shiver down David's spine. He recognized none of them, yet their collective presence radiated an undeniable power, a silent authority that transcended time. One detail, however, made his blood run cold. The faint, almost imperceptible symbol of the serpent devouring its tail, subtly embroidered onto the lapel of each individual's jacket. These were the architects, the silent custodians. David stared at the items, his mind reeling. This wasn't just a secret. It was an entire hidden history, a parallel world operating beneath the surface of his own. The USB drive held the current operations, the journal the historical framework, and the photograph the faces of those who had woven this intricate web of control. He felt the immense weight of it all, a crushing realization that the shadow government wasn't a mere figure of speech, but a deeply entrenched ancient order. He carefully closed the journal, picked up the USB drive, and then placed the photo back in the box. He couldn't process it all here. He needed to get out to a secure location to begin deciphering this impossible puzzle. As he reached for the lid of the box, a sudden piercing chill swept through the tiny room. It wasn't a draft. It was the unmistakable sensation of being watched, of an invisible presence tightening its grip around him. His instincts, honed by weeks of paranoia, screamed danger. He heard the faint, distinct sound of a distant alarm, quickly stifled, but not before it registered in his ears. Then the rhythmic thud of heavy footsteps approaching the vault door. Not Sarah's light tread, but something more deliberate, more menacing. The air grew thick with an unspoken threat. They knew. They had found him. The deadliest secret was now in his hands, and the race for his life, and perhaps for the truth itself, had just begun. He shoved the USB drive into his pocket, slammed the lid on the box, and scrambled out of the viewing room, his heart pounding a frantic drumbeat against his ribs. The vault door, once a symbol of security, now felt like a trap. He burst from the vault, the heavy steel door groaning shut behind him with a finality that echoed the ceiling of his past life. The familiar, musty smell of the hidden corridor now seemed laced with something else, a metallic tang of fear and something far more insidious. Every shadow seemed to stretch. Every creak of the old house settling felt like footsteps pursuing him. The weight of the USB drive in his pocket was a physical burden, a burning ember against his thigh. He wasn't just carrying data. He was carrying the potential destruction of everything he knew, everything humanity assumed to be true. Back in his father's study, the room that had once been a sanctuary of quiet contemplation now felt like a stage set, a meticulously crafted illusion. The worn leather armchair, the overflowing bookshelves, the faint scent of pipe tobacco, all of it was a lie, a carefully constructed facade to hide the abyss beneath. He glanced at the hidden panel, the entry point to the vault. It seemed innocuous, almost innocent, yet it was the gateway to a truth so monstrous it threatened to unravel the very fabric of reality. His mind raced, a whirlwind of fragments. Project Chimera, genetic manipulation, mind control, the council. His father's desperate, tortured voice warning him not to trust anyone, to expose the truth, to fight. Michael felt a sickening lurch in his stomach. He wasn't just a discovery. He was a target. And the game, as his father had chillingly put it, had just begun. He moved through the house with a newfound urgency, his senses hyper-alert. The comforting silence of his isolated home now felt like a vacuum, waiting to be filled by the sound of an intruder, a threat. He checked the windows, the doors, the alarm system, a futile gesture. He knew. If the council was as powerful and omnipresent as his father claimed, no ordinary security system would deter them. They could be watching already, listening. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, a cold dread that settled deep in his bones. He needed to think, to plan, but panic was a rising tide. His father had left him this burden, this impossible task, but hadn't provided a blueprint for survival. Asterisk, expose them, Michael. Tell the world. Asterisk, how do you expose a shadow government that controls everything, that can alter human consciousness? Who would even believe him? His gaze fell upon his father's old desktop computer, sitting innocently on a small writing desk in the corner. It was an older model, disconnected from the internet for years, used only for document writing and basic tasks. A thought sparked in Michael's mind. The USB drive contained the encrypted files, but also a standalone program, a viewer. He needed to see it all, to understand the full scope of Project Chimera, to find the key, the weakness, the evidence so undeniable that even a world-controlling cabal couldn't suppress it. His fingers fumbled as he plugged the USB drive into the ancient machine. The screen flickered to life, and a complex interface, far more advanced than anything the old computer should have been able to handle, materialized. It wasn't just a simple file browser. It was a sophisticated data visualization tool, meticulously organized, designed to present a terrifying narrative. He navigated through folders, each click revealing a new layer of depravity. There were schematics, intricate diagrams of neural pathways, genetic sequences, and something called cognitive resonance emitters. There were case studies, thousands of them, detailing the successful integration of altered individuals into positions of power and influence. Senators, CEOs, media moguls, even military generals, all subtly manipulated, their free will eroded, their minds rewired to serve the unseen agenda of the council. A cold sweat broke out on Michael's forehead. This wasn't just a conspiracy theory. It was a silent, insidious invasion of humanity itself. The scope was breathtaking, terrifying. Entire generations, entire societies had been subtly steered, their choices influenced, their destinies rewritten. It wasn't about control through force, it was about control through engineered thought, through psychological puppetry. He found a folder labeled Phase 3, Global Integration. Inside were projections, timelines, and a chilling list of targets. Key global institutions, international organizations, even cultural movements. The goal wasn't just national dominance. It was absolute, global ideological conformity, achieved not by overt tyranny, but by the gradual, undetectable erosion of individual autonomy. His father's voice from the recording echoed in his mind. Asterisk, they plan to remove the very concept of dissent, Michael. To make free thought an anomaly. Asterisk, now, seeing the data, he understood the horrifying truth of that statement. But amidst the horror he found something else. a subfolder titled Vulnerabilities. His heart pounded. His father, in his desperate final stand, had been looking for a way out, a way to fight back. Inside, there was a series of encrypted logs, a final message, and a single, uncorrupted, untampered with video file. He clicked on the video. The screen filled with a grainy, distorted image of a man in a lab coat, his face obscured by shadow. But the voice was clear, calm, and filled with a quiet despair. "My name is Dr. Elias Vance. I was one of the lead scientists on Project Chimera. What we created, it's a monstrosity. We were promised it would be used for good, for stability. But the council twisted it, corrupted it. They seek not order, but absolute dominion. There is a failsafe, a flaw in the resonance frequency, a specific harmonic that, if amplified, could disrupt the neural pathways without permanent damage. A temporary awakening. It would be brief, chaotic, but it would shatter the illusion even for a moment. But the device, the primary emitter, it's a prototype, stored in a secure facility outside of their direct control for now. Location coordinates are in my encrypted journal. File Prometheus." The video ended abruptly. Michael stared at the screen, a new kind of hope, fragile but fierce, igniting within him. A failsafe, a way to fight back. His father hadn't just left him a burden. He'd left him a weapon, a glimmer of light in the overwhelming darkness. He quickly copied the vulnerabilities folder and the video file to a separate, smaller USB drive he found in his father's desk drawer. This smaller drive, he decided, would be his primary objective, to get this information to someone, anyone who could help. But who? His father had warned him about infiltration, about trusting no one. As he unplugged the drive, a faint, almost imperceptible hum resonated through the floorboards. It was too low to be the house settling, too consistent to be a natural sound. He froze, straining his ears. The hum grew, a subtle vibration that thrummed through the soles of his feet. It was coming from outside. He crept to the window, peering through a gap in the heavy curtains. A dark sedan, sleek and unmarked, was parked down the street, its engine idling silently. Too far away to make out details, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming, chillingly real. Then a glint of light from the roof of the car. A small parabolic dish, barely visible. A directional microphone, perhaps? Or something worse. They were here. They knew. The hum intensified, a low throb that vibrated not just the floor, but his very bones. It wasn't the car. It was something else, something directed at the house. A sonic pulse? A surveillance sweep? He didn't know, but his instincts screamed danger. The time for analysis was over. The time for escape was now. He snatched up the small USB drive, his father's old, worn leather journal, perhaps it contained the coordinates mentioned by Dr. Vance, and his car keys. He had to assume his phone was compromised, his internet connection monitored. He was cut off, alone and hunted. He couldn't go to the police, they could be compromised. He couldn't trust the media. They could be under influence. He had to find someone outside the system, someone independent, someone who could help him expose the truth and trigger that failsafe. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of adrenaline and terror. He had to disappear, to become a ghost, to buy himself time. The world was a chessboard, and he was a pawn, suddenly aware of the grand, horrifying game being played around him. But he was a pawn with a secret, a pawn with the potential to flip the entire board. He slipped out the back door, leaving the house, his past, and the terrifying truth behind, melting into the deepening twilight. The hum from the street intensified, a silent declaration of war. He was no longer just Michael. He was the bearer of humanity's deadliest secret, and the target of a shadow government determined to keep it buried. His run for survival, for truth, for the very essence of free will, had truly begun. His run for survival, for truth, for the very essence of free will, had truly begun. Michael didn't have a plan, not really. Only an instinct, a burning certainty that the data on the drive, the declaration of war he now carried, couldn't be buried. It was a digital time bomb, counting down to humanity's collective rewrite. He knew their tactics, the shadow government's playbook. They wouldn't send assassins with guns blazing in broad daylight. They'd use algorithms, social engineering, silent disappearances. They'd make him a ghost, a conspiracy theory, before he even spoke a word. His first move was to disappear from the grid entirely. No phone, no credit cards, no digital footprint. He shed his identity like a snake sheds its skin, relying on cash and the forgotten backroads of America. He traveled light, the small, encrypted drive tucked into a hidden pocket, its weight a constant, terrifying reminder. Days bled into nights, fueled by stale coffee and a primal fear that kept him awake, alert. He saw their eyes everywhere, in the indifferent faces of strangers, the glint of a passing car window, the surveillance cameras on every street corner. They were hunting him, and they had every resource imaginable. He knew he couldn't just upload the data. It would be suppressed, twisted, drowned in a sea of misinformation before it could take root. He needed a conduit, someone with enough reach and credibility to make the truth undeniable, someone who wasn't already compromised. The name that kept resurfacing in his mind was David Miller, the investigative journalist. David had a reputation for chasing ghosts, for digging into stories no one else dared touch. He was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but Michael had no other options. Finding David without leaving a digital trail was a Herculean task. Michael used payphones, burner phones acquired through circuitous routes, and a network of obscure contacts he'd cultivated during his own less-than-ethical days at the agency. He left cryptic messages, breadcrumbs leading David down a rabbit hole, testing his resolve, his integrity. He couldn't risk revealing himself too soon, not when the stakes were literally the future of human consciousness. Meanwhile, the shadow government wasn't idle. They weren't just searching for Michael. They were initiating countermeasures. Whispers began to circulate online, carefully crafted narratives discrediting any potential leaks, painting Michael as a rogue agent, a paranoid fantasist. The groundwork was being laid to dismiss him before he even spoke. This was their genius, controlling the narrative before the truth even had a chance to breathe. As Michael moved, a new unexpected element entered the equation: Jessica. She found him, not through tracking but through a desperate, almost telepathic understanding of where he might go, the kind of places a man like him would seek solace or a new identity. She intercepted him in a dusty, forgotten diner in rural Ohio, her face etched with a fear that mirrored his own. "They know Michael," she whispered, sliding into the booth opposite him, her eyes darting nervously. "They know you have it. Project Chimera is being accelerated. The red code, it's not just a threat anymore. It's happening." Michael stared at her, a whirlwind of suspicion and relief. "How did you find me? Are you with them?" "No," she hissed, her voice cracking. "I saw what they were doing, the full scope of it. They weren't just influencing minds, Michael. They were preparing to replace them, to rewrite history, perception, memories on a global scale, to make us believe a reality they manufactured permanently. The red code is the final activation. It's irreversible. They're going to turn humanity into a collective dream, a perfect, controllable synthetic reality." Her words sent a chill down Michael's spine, confirming his darkest fears. The deadliest secret wasn't just mass manipulation. It was mass erasure of free will, a global lobotomy of reality itself. "I can help you," Jessica continued, her gaze unwavering. "I know their internal comms, their blind spots. I know how to get the data out, how to get it to David, without them tracing it back to us immediately." Trusting Jessica was a monumental risk, but Michael saw the genuine terror in her eyes, the same horror that had driven him to run. She was broken, yes, but her conscience, it seemed, was still intact. "What's your plan?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "We can't just send it. We have to make it an event," Jessica explained, sketching diagrams on a napkin. "A distributed, simultaneous release. Not just to David but to a network of independent journalists, whistleblowers, NGOs. Flood the zone. Make it impossible to contain. But we need a secure point, a physical location where we can initiate the broadcast." They chose an abandoned data center, a relic of the dot-com boom, deep within a forgotten industrial park. It was a ghost town, perfect for their clandestine operation. Jessica, with her knowledge of their systems, knew how to piggyback onto their own secure networks, using their infrastructure against them, creating a temporary, untraceable conduit. The night of the upload was a blur of frantic activity and heart-pounding suspense. Michael worked on preparing the data, a self-executing program that, once unleashed, would not only transmit the core files but also provide a verifiable, undeniable demonstration of Project Chimera's capabilities. A real-time unraveling of a carefully constructed lie that had been embedded in public consciousness for months. It would show how a specific event, widely believed to be true, was in fact a fabrication, demonstrating the mechanism of its implantation and the evidence of its artificiality. Jessica, meanwhile, set up the broadcast, bypassing firewalls, rerouting signals through a labyrinth of proxies. Every click, every keystroke, felt like a thunderclap in the oppressive silence. Outside, the world slept, unaware of the war being waged for its very perception. Suddenly, alarms blared through their makeshift setup. "They found us," Jessica gasped, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "They're close. We have minutes, maybe less." Michael felt a surge of adrenaline, cold and sharp. This was it, the moment of truth. He initiated the upload, a single decisive command. "It's going," he said, watching the progress bar crawl agonizingly slowly. "It's going to the world." The data stream was a torrent, a digital tsunami designed to overwhelm their suppression protocols. It contained not just the documents detailing Project Chimera and the Red Code, but also embedded code that would reveal the fabricated event, exposing the synthetic reality to anyone who accessed it. It was a digital key, unlocking the cage of human perception. Footsteps pounded outside, growing louder. The crackle of comm systems, the hushed shouts of agents. They were here. Almost there. Jessica yelled, her eyes glued to the screen. Just a few more seconds. The door burst open, splintering wood, revealing a squad of heavily armed agents, their faces grim, their weapons raised. Leading them was a figure Michael recognized, a man named Agent Thorne, a ghost from his past, a ruthless enforcer of the shadow government. "Michael," Thorne's voice was a low growl. "Stand down. This ends now." Michael didn't move. His gaze was fixed on the screen, the progress bar just shy of completion. Jessica, defiant, slammed her hand on the last key, confirming the global transmission. "It's out," she whispered, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "It's done." Thorne opened fire. The world plunged into chaos. The broadcast, a digital torrent of truth, hit the global networks, igniting a firestorm. At first it was dismissed, labeled as a sophisticated hoax, a conspiracy theory. But then the embedded code activated, revealing the manufactured event, showing undeniable proof of its artificiality, the subtle ways it had been stitched into collective memory. People watched, horrified, as their own perceptions began to unravel. The truth was too immense, too terrifying to grasp immediately. Some believed, their minds reeling from the betrayal. Others clung desperately to the comfortable lies, convinced it was just another elaborate deception. The shadow government initiated its full counteroffensive, flooding the internet with denials, counter-narratives, and a new wave of carefully crafted misinformation. The war for reality had truly begun, not with bombs and bullets, but with data and deception, fought in the battleground of the human mind. Michael's fate remained a mystery. In the immediate aftermath of the raid, amidst the smoke and the shouting, he vanished. Some said he was captured, silenced forever. Others claimed he became a phantom, a digital ghost, continuing to fight from the shadows, an unseen hand guiding the truth. Jessica's fate was equally ambiguous. She was either apprehended or disappeared, her sacrifice a silent testament to the devastating power of the truth. The world was left teetering on the precipice of a new reality, fractured and uncertain. The revelation of Project Chimera and the Red Code had shattered the illusion of collective consensus, exposing the fragile nature of perception itself. Was anything truly real, or was it all just a cleverly constructed narrative? The shadow government, though wounded, did not fall. They retreated deeper into the digital shadows, their power diminished but not destroyed. They continued to manipulate, to sow discord, to rebuild their synthetic reality, adapting their tactics to a world now acutely aware of their existence. And so the fight continued, a silent war for the very essence of human free will. Every news article, every social media post, every shared experience became a potential battleground. The deadliest secret wasn't just a project or a code. It was the chilling realization that our reality could be fundamentally altered, our memories rewritten, our free will an illusion. And the only weapon against it was the relentless, unwavering pursuit of truth, a pursuit that had only just begun. The question lingered, a cold whisper in the collective consciousness. If they could manipulate what we believed, what else had they changed? And how would we ever truly know?